Welcome to the Self-Publishing Tips and Tricks Show, a series designed to give you insight into the world of self-publishing and marketing your books. Featuring your hosts, Shannon, the author behind the pen name SC Huston, Ben Pick, and Morgan Lee. Join us several times each month when we interview authors about their self-publishing and marketing journeys, talk to industry leaders, and discuss books about writing, self-publishing, and marketing.
Hello, everyone. I am Morgan Lee, and I am an indie author of dark fantasy of the Seedlings trilogy. Today, we are doing the last episode for season 5, a special December 15th, 2024 episode, which is bittersweet for me because this is the last time that I will be co-hosting on the podcast. And today we are taking a moment to celebrate everything we've accomplished together, discuss the importance of prioritizing ourselves as authors, and look ahead to what the future holds. We'll also be introducing you to the amazing author who will be joining the team next season. But before we move into our questions for each other, let's give some updates about what's happening in our lives right now.
Yes, we're going to try and make it through this episode without tearing up because I've done it a few times already. So I really appreciate you being on the podcast with us, Morgan. So, all right. So I am Shannon. I write under the pen name of SC Huston, a fantasy author with a passion for writing about broken characters who face adversity to become better versions of themselves. And there may or may not be dragons, but there's always love to find. And so updates with me, I have finished the second book in my series, A Curse of Wings and Gems, and I'm heavy into revisions. I know that I want to do a Kickstarter for this one, and I did put it out to some of my beta readers that I plan to do it in October. And there are so many revisions. I'm going through it and just like looking, I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna get this done in time for October and get it, because I want my beta readers to have the best version, but I'm still in the process of doing the chapters. They're getting the chapters little by little every day. I get them anywhere between 3 and 10 chapters a day, but then they're giving me feedback on what they've already read. I'm like, I need to do that. It's just so much that I need to, I don't know if I can get it done in October. So this comes out December 15th. Either the Kickstarter is done and it's successful, or it's about to happen, because if I don't do it in October, then I will wait until the end of January to run the Kickstarter. And at this time, I can't tell you which one it's actually going to be, but that's where I'm at.
Well, I am Ben Pick. I am an urban fantasy author. I got 3 books behind me. I'm working on my 4th, and I am on a much slower time scale than Shannon. So I'm not freaking out at the moment. But at the same time, I'm also writing incredibly slowly, which is also in itself very frustrating. But work is sort of taking over a little bit and all that fun stuff. So when this comes out, I'm still going to be working on book 4. There's no way I'm going to get done with it with the draft 0 of it, but still working. So.
What I will tell you, when I did finish this full draft of this book, I went back and looked at how long it took me. It took me 18 months to write it. So it may seem like it's fast, but it's taken me 18 months to write it. So,
yeah.
And it's because other stuff happened. The authortube writing conference has happened twice since then. So.
But your side note, your book is also 175,000 words. So it's going to be double what I'm planning for.
It was 193 when I first.
193. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. My goal is to get it to 175. I'm right now at 181 from revisions. So
either way, that's going to be double or some magnitude difference than mine. So,
and I don't have a day job. You've got the day job, so that's something else that takes up your time.
Fair enough. Anyways, Morgan, let's bring it back to you.
I'm kind of in the same boat with as Ben with writing kind of slow. At the moment, I'm working on revisions still for book 3. It was supposed to be out earlier this year, but probably it didn't happen. So by December, maybe I've published it, maybe not. I don't know yet. So working on revisions for that. But as of recording this, I do have plans to start posting videos on my YouTube channel again. So hopefully there are some videos over there now that you can go and check out, maybe some live streams and maybe hopefully a 3rd book in my trilogy. And then the first book in my cozy fantasy is coming out. It's up for pre-order, and that's coming out February 10th. So you can also look forward to that.
And just because you're not here doesn't mean that we still take all your links. If you've got them, you want us to tell us, hey, she's finished it, go get it, let us know. We'll do it.
Okay, awesome. Well, when we started this journey together, we wanted to know more about what others were doing when it came to self-publishing and marketing their books. We've had a lot of great guests on the show, and we've learned so much. So let's reflect on that journey now, starting with our first question. What are you most proud of accomplishing on your self-publishing journey, and what lessons have you learned along the way that have been most valuable?
So I would say that the self-publishing journey is a long journey. Settle in for it if this is something that you want to do. And I would say that's part of my probably the most valuable lesson is, to give yourself that grace. It's not something that's going to happen over time. But I am proud. It took me a minute to really come up with this answer because I think it's hard for us to look at what we're doing and be proud of it. Because we're like, there's just so much more I could be doing. I'm not there yet. So I had to really step back and take a look at like what it is that I'm proud of. And I could say, I don't want to, we have this idea that we were, being humble. So it's kind of hard to just say, I'm proud of this and that, but sorry, it's hard for me to get it out. But I'm proud of this podcast, the community that we've built around the podcast. I'm proud of the authortube writing conference and being able to foster a supportive environment for, other authors while managing my own creative projects, which takes a lot of juggling and has been part of a lot of stuff that I've had to work through and figure out. And that'll be part of our questions that we have later, but that time management stuff. So I'd probably say that the best lesson is perseverance and adaptability. It's not going to always go according to plan. So you just kind of have to be open to change and be ready to pivot, which that applies across the full spectrum of being a self-published author because things are constantly changing.
That's fair. I was going to also say something along the lines of community because once a month, the second Monday of every month, I host a productivity sprint, and there's just people who show up and we write together. I still on Monday nights, I host authortube videos where I just talk, all types of advice and just talk about my progress, and people show up every week in, week out. So since Shannon already kind of said community, I'm going to go with something else. I'm honestly proud that I wrote my first book. I know looking inward, which isn't really what I'm all about, but it is such a difficult journey to write that first book and then to go back and do it again and work on, your third book and everything that comes from there. And the lesson that I've learned along the way is that I always, years and years ago, I always dreamed about publishing and writing and publishing that first book. And now that I'm past that first finish line, I realized that is the easy part. Writing my first book was the easy part. Coming back, doing it again, writing another book, promoting my book, marketing, everything that goes along with that. Like the writing is just such a small fraction of everything that's encompassing in the self-publishing journey that the writing is now at a point where it kind of comes easier than everything else. It's not to say that's not to say that it is actually easy, but of everything else, it is the easier part.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah, same. The thing that I'm most proud of, I would say, is also my first book, but I think it's my second book that I am most proud of. Because like you were saying, Ben, like coming back and doing it a second time is even harder than like just doing it the first time. Because technically I've written the whole series. Book 3 is done. It's not published yet, but it is done. And I am proud of the fact that I have continued on into finishing the series. And so the biggest lesson I think that I've learned is perseverance and just to keep going, no matter like what obstacles get in the way, no matter who doesn't like your book, no matter who rated it 2 stars or whatever, just to get over that hurdle of like thinking you're the worst author ever and like thinking your writing sucks and just doing it anyway is probably one of the most valuable lessons that I have learned. My first book taught me a lot, but I feel like my second book taught me even more. And I'm just grateful for the lessons that I've learned just in that series. So
yeah, and I think your second book was like miles above your first one. I loved your first book, but your second book was like, wow, this really blew my mind. How much you got it. Yeah, it was really good. And what I've read of your third book, it's been a minute, but I know I helped critique, and I don't know if you even kept those chapters that I critiqued, but those, I love them. So yeah, I'm looking forward to when you're able to, when it works for you, when your next book comes out. I'm looking forward to buying it all in paperback. So, all right. So our next question is, what's your biggest struggle in self-publishing and how have you approached overcoming it, or are you still working on it?
So I'm going first. I'm going to go the easy answer, time management. That is hands down the most difficult thing for me because there's so many different aspects that we need to work on. There's writing the book, there's editing it, and I'm usually doing both those simultaneously, or at least I have in the past, where I was writing book 3 while editing book 2, while I was marking book 1 and doing my YouTube videos every week, and there's just so many different places to focus on, and it's extremely complicated to know what to do and what to do when and how, and it comes down to prioritization. So I need to kind of work backwards of, I want to focus on promoting my book this month, I want to focus on writing the next book this month, I want to hit this deadline where I get this book out in the start of December rather than wait until the new year. And it all comes down to taking bite-sized pieces of of each of those. So what do I need to do to get this book published by then? And then setting up a list of steps that I can go through one by one and check off until I'm sitting in a completed book. So time management is the most difficult part, and the best way to handle it is one task at a time.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I'm really bad at time management. I think the biggest hurdle for me with self-publishing has been marketing because I don't really do it at all. And it's something that I'm still working on to get more comfortable with and actually like follow through with promoting my books. And just like with piggybacking on time management, like how many hours do I spend writing, and then how many hours do I spend marketing, and then how to divide all your time between like life stuff and then writing and author stuff. So that has been the most challenging part. And I think what I've been doing to kind of overcome it is kind of stepping back from some things. So like I haven't posted on my YouTube channel in like a year because I've been working on just like focusing on just writing the books. So I've written a couple of other books besides book 3 in my trilogy. So I've written, I think, 2 others in the past year and a half or so, like that, something like that. So like taking stuff off of my plate to focus more. So it's still kind of a work in progress to get everything accomplished.
So I would say it's probably the same for me as the time management. And I'll kind of take this a little bit step further because with time management, it's balancing all the different hats that we wear. And if, it could be the multiple books, your day job, your family, because all these deserve, some type of weight given to them. And it can oftentimes feel overwhelming. And part of how I tackled this was looking at, well, what do I want to be doing that's going to make me the happiest? And I am in a different place in my life from Ben and Morgan. I don't have a day job anymore. We're retired. So I had to look at, okay, I love the podcast. I love the authortube writing conference. Those are 2 things I know I did not want to give up. So what else could I give up if I wanted to meet my goals? And I had to figure out, okay, what's my goal? My goal is, well, I stopped teaching because I wanted to write full time. But if I'm doing all this other stuff and not writing, then I'm not actually doing what I quit my job for. So, and I know that writing makes me happy. So I was like, okay, what else can I do to make myself happier and get more writing in? And this was a long process. So at the end of 2022, I thought, okay, I need to set myself a goal for writing so that I can get my writing done. And I did, it's arbitrary, but not arbitrary. I went off of a written word media survey that said that those full-time authors who made a livable wage basically wrote 20 hours a week, or they spent 20 hours a week working on their writing. And I thought, okay, well, I could do that 20 hours a week. Yes. So I tracked everything starting last year, first day of January. I tracked everything throughout the entire year. And I did not meet that. I had 11.33 hours given to writing. And I had decided to meet my goal of 20 hours. I was going to have to do fewer videos on my channel. So I used to put out weekly videos too. All the time it was weekly videos. But in 2022, I kind of started backing off a little bit. And I thought, or not 2022, sorry, 2023, I started backing off a little bit to meet my goals. And at the end, when I realized I did not meet my goal, not only did I not meet my goal for the writing hours, I also did not meet like what I wanted to accomplish in my actual writing. And, I kind of knew that I wanted to get like my next book done in the series. I had A Curse of Scales and Feathers, but I wanted the next book to be pretty much done with it by the end of 2023. And I wasn't. I started it in April, but I wasn't done with it. And so I thought, okay, what else can I do? How else can I do this? And there was a lot of issues with the authortube writing conference that year behind the scenes. You guys don't know. Nobody on the outside knew about what's going on. But I was at the point where I was like, I can't continue doing the conference. If I don't have help, I can't do all of this and put myself through this just to have all these issues come up. I mean, one thing was me, I didn't really know how to do the website, and I crashed it the day before the conference happened. So the first day of the conference, we didn't have a website up. I was still working on it until midnight, and I'd already stayed up to 3:00 in the morning working on it. Slept 2 hours because I got up and went to the gym at 5. And I was like, I can't do this. I just can't. This is not the way I can continue. And I wrote no words in June of 2023. So I thought, okay, what else am I going to do? And I remember saying, it was to Andy. We've had Andy on the podcast a few times. I can't do this. I'm done. And this was before the authortube writing conference weekend was over, but it was during the weekend. I was like, I'm done. I can't do this. And he said, ask for help. He was like, ask for help and see who steps up. And so I did. And a bunch of people stepped up, and I put it out. I was very clear. I was like, if we do not get the help, we cannot continue. I cannot continue at this pace. And we had a ton of help. So asking for help, that really, it's hard to ask for help, especially when you're doing something that's free. you have no way of paying people for their time, so they're all volunteers. And so that kind of helped getting that help. And guys, this year I decided to do a different goal for myself, which was a word count goal. I looked at how much I wrote last year because I kept track of everything. Like I said, this has been a couple of years of working, trying to figure out what works for me. And I saw, okay, I wrote 366 words, or 314,666 words is what I wrote last year. So I thought, okay, let me bump it up a little bit to 400,000 because I'm going to scale back on other things like the authortube writing conference. I'm not going to do as much because I have volunteers, and I have surpassed it. I'm over 500,000 words for the year. So it's working to just kind of tweak it, figure out what works for you. It takes that time, the perseverance, and really deeply looking into what can you do? What can you continue doing if you have help? And if you don't have that help, can you let it go? Because what's your overall goal? What you want to get to. So yeah, it's been a long time of me trying to figure all that out. I'm still not exactly where I want to be in my writing projects, but I'm happy for all the words.
How has this podcast influenced your self-publishing journey, and what's one thing you'll take away from this experience?
I thought really hard about this question. It's hard to come with an answer because the podcast has opened up so many, like, I guess, so much information that I didn't have before. And now it's all like in this one place that I can go back and listen to of like, okay, what was the episode on newsletters? What was the episode on marketing? And I can get all of this information all in one place. Yeah. But the wealth of information that all of our guests have given us on the podcast will live, on the playlist forever. I can always go back and try to figure out and take information from the episodes that we've had. And the one thing that I think I will take away from the podcast is really the importance of having an active newsletter, which I still don't have an active newsletter, but it's like the nugget that I'm just holding on to of like, I really need to get this done for my marketing. And at least like that, for that to be at least the thing that I do. So that's something that I've just held on to. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and I always like to say, I felt like when I first came up with the idea of the podcast, I was like, I don't know what I don't know. I want to know what other people know. So it was kind of selfish in a way that I wanted to do this podcast because I wanted to know what other people were doing. And I knew you guys were still pretty early in your author careers. And were like, I'm sure they want to come along and learn all this stuff with me. So and so, yeah, that was something I've definitely learned, and my insights from doing the podcast. But I think that another part of it, it has grown from there. We have this opportunity to connect with all this wealth of information, but we're also connecting to other authors, and we get to see our shared experiences and be validated in our own struggles and successes and what we've learned about, marketing and building an audience and overcoming hurdles and things like that. So I guess, again, it kind of goes back to like that community is, the key takeaway for me. Self-publishing doesn't have to be, a solitary endeavor. There's definitely benefits in sharing our knowledge with each other.
As for me, this podcast has influenced, it is my self-publishing journey. I mean, Shannon, I joined this with you where you started this off basically right after I had published my first novel. And in fact,
Same.
a lot of I'm trying to remember the timeline exactly, but as of right now, I have 2 editors who I met through this podcast. Well, kind of. I mean, Morgan, I knew you beforehand, but, obviously now that we've, worked together on the same podcast, I'm like, you were one of the first people I thought of when I realized I needed somebody to help me edit my novels. And Chrissy Stratos was another person who Shannon, you brought on here, and she was phenomenal. She was well outspoken, and she had just this wealth of knowledge within her. And both of you, Morgan and Chrissy, I was like, wow, these people are fantastic. I like their mindset. I like what they're doing for the community, and I like, I'll reach out to them and try and have them help me edit my novels. So everything about my self-publishing journey kind of was enhanced thanks to this podcast. I mean, right now when we're recording this, I feel like it was last week. Time is relative, but we just recorded an episode where we interviewed a team of people about Ream and their experiences with that whole platform. And that's something that I've considered looking into, and something that if I were writing at a steadier and faster pace, I would happily sign up for and configure and, incorporate into my marketing and self-publishing for my 4th book. So honestly, almost my entire self-publishing journey has been mirrored with this podcast. Whenever Shannon asks for us to find people that we'd like to interview, it's, hey, I have this specific problem. Here's a person who solves this problem. Let me bring them on, and I'll ask them a bunch of really tough questions about my specific problem, essentially. So it all just comes full circle.
I love that.
Yeah, and it really brings in just that idea of community
Mhm.
together again. So I think that's kind of like, I guess, the key takeaway for me too. Now that I think about it, of like just meeting a whole bunch of different people that I wouldn't have met without the podcast. So yeah. What has been your biggest challenge in balancing writing and self-publishing with the demands of everyday life, and what strategies have you found most helpful in overcoming it?
So I think I talked about a little bit of this with the last question, but what I don't think I talked about was that to meet my writing goal, because that is my main thing, is that I'm doing this because I want to write. So my writing goal should be my most important thing. So to meet that, what I did was that I set up writing sprints on my channel Monday through Thursday, and it's dedicated time. There are occasions when I've had to like spend like a sprint doing something that was admin because it was something that was due right now, whether for the conference, podcast, or whatnot. But I would say that like last year, when I was having too much on my plate and I still hadn't figured out the right balance, I would say starting about, well, in June, I didn't write a single word. That means that every single sprint I did was admin. This year, I have spent not whole periods, but just sprint times. I have spent 8 to 25-minute sprint times from the beginning of this year doing admin. The rest of them have all been writing. So I think, getting that all set in place and having that dedicated time has really helped me.
I think that the strategy that I found most helpful is honestly that writing is something I enjoy doing. So when my balance gets completely thrown off, if I don't have time to write, then I know that there's something seriously wrong and I need to adjust something somewhere, whether that is work, whether that's, playing too many games, or, I have friends and family in town, or I'm visiting, traveling, do whatever. But when it comes down to it, I really just like sitting there and tapping away at my computer. So if I don't have time to write, then that's an indicator that there's some other issue within my life that I need to address. So it's not really a good way of finding a balance, but it's recognizing that there is a problem that I need to resolve, and changing how I spend my hours in my day is the best solution. If Let me put that another way. If I don't have time to write, it indicates that I'm doing a lot more overtime than I probably should. So it's easier for me to say, hey, I need to leave work at exactly 5. I put in my 8 hours. I've done as much as I can. I'm going to go walk my dog for an hour. I'm going to come back and I'm going to write, or at least I'm going to plan to write, or I'm going to work on my outline, or I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. But when that 5 o'clock keeps getting pushed further and further back, then I obviously still need to walk my dog, and then it's dinner time, and then I just need to relax and unwind somehow. So when everything sort of gets consumed and I don't have time to write, that's an indicator that I need to change something within my lifestyle.
And I think that's a really important thing, is to be able to recognize there's something here that's not working. So you have to first be able to recognize that before you can do anything about it. So I think that's really good.
Yeah, and I resonate with that as well. So like with me starting my new job in January, I'm a supervisor now, and I have to do a lot of, like, sometimes the work day can bleed into the time I'm not at work. Like I have a work phone, people are texting me, people are emailing me, and it kind of like, it's been hard to know when that cutoff is. Like, okay, work is done. Now, like, it's my time. I can write, I can do whatever. So for me, the biggest challenge has been not letting life bleed over into like my writing time. What I found most helpful is trying to figure out designated times to write has been one of the ways that I'm trying to overcome it. So really sticking to my work time, and having work be within that time, and then having time after work designated for writing, and then having designated time for freelance editing when I'm working on other people's stuff. And that's just kind of been what I'm trying to find a balance for lately. And it's not reached yet, but I feel like I'm slowly finding it, because oftentimes I feel like I'll hit the point of saying yes to everything, and like, yeah, I want to do that. Yeah, I can do that. Yes, I'll be on this stream. I'll do this. And then I reach a point where I'm like, I have no time for anything. And then like hitting a wall and like crashing. So I'm trying to prevent that in the future, and really like take time to assess before I say yes to things, and really look at my schedule to see if things can fit in without blowing everything else up.
So I don't know if you guys feel like you might have answered this already. I do have another answer to this, but looking back, what is the one piece of advice you would give yourself, the best like tip or trick that you could tell your past self when it comes to juggling all these writing ideas and your writing life with other commitments?
My answer is very similar to what Morgan just said. I'm also in a more managerial role, and it was so much easier to write when I was just focused on myself and what I had to do in the given day. But now that I'm responsible for other people, I kind of need to do more to ensure that they are successful. Whereas when it was just me, I didn't really care. I would do what I had to do, and if things worked out, great. If not, whatever. But now that I'm helping out other people, it's a lot. I feel a lot more burdened to help them succeed than I do to help myself succeed, which is really dumb. I don't honestly have good advice here for managing time. Sort of just set aside time to be yourself. I know we have a whole bunch of questions where I'm probably going to reiterate this in different ways, but if you need to clear your head, go work out. If you need to write, put in 30 minutes to just cut off yourself from everything else. Go in the basement, turn off your phone, and just write. If that's what you really want to do, if that's something that's important to you, find the time to get 30 minutes. And it doesn't need to be 30 minutes a day. It could even be 30 minutes a week. Just do something if that's what you really want.
And then I would say I like this quote. I don't know where it comes from, but you can't pour from an empty cup. So with me, I often stretch myself thin trying to be everything for other people, and then I don't have any time to devote to myself or devote to writing. And then there is no priority, there's no juggling, everything is just a mess. So take the time to invest in yourself, whether that be with something like self-care, whether that be with writing and making sure you get your writing done because that's what's important to you. Do that so that you are okay and that you can be better for where you need to be in life with other people. So
And so mine is kind of similar to what Morgan said to the last question we had, which is saying no. And what I'd really tell my past self is to get more comfortable with saying no earlier, because in the beginning, you want to do all the things because you're like, I need to get out there, I need to network, I need to meet people, I need to do this, I need to do that. So you're saying yes, yes, yes to everything. And then I realized that you leave yourself no time for you in your writing. And I've been where you're at, Ben, when, a decade earlier when I was teaching college English and literature, and I was also a writing coach, and I was working with writers from all over the world. And I had a class online too. I had 1,000 students in there. So I got to a point where I was like, I'm tired. I love helping people. I mean, I think you guys probably know that about me. It's why we got the authortube writing conference. I love helping people. But I got to the point where I was like, I'm tired of helping other people be better writers. And I have no time for myself to write because I didn't write hardly at all for years while I was teaching. So I just wish I would have learned that it was okay to say no.
Now, how has your approach to writing and self-publishing evolved as your life circumstances have changed over the past few years?
I think lately I have tried to take a more relaxed approach to my self-publishing journey, as my life has changed over the past couple of years, and I think that's because I think I psych myself out a little bit when I'm trying to like I have to do this, I have to do this. Like I'm trying to do too much and I'm trying to keep up with everybody. And like, oh well, this person just published a book and this person just released their second book and they're so successful. And a lot like early on, before Seed Among the Thorns, when I published my other book in like 2016, I was trying to like do everything because everybody else was doing everything. So I really wanted to keep up. And lately, I feel like I'm taking a more relaxed approach and trying to give my stories and my writing the time that it needs in order to go from idea to completion and not trying to rush the process as much. So, yeah, I'm approaching it from a more relaxed position. It's like, yes, I want to be a successful self-published author, but I don't want to continue to like cut corners because I feel like early on I tried to cut corners and just be like, this is good enough and I need to just hurry up. And so now I feel like as I've just matured and my writing's matured and gotten better, and I'm just like, okay, let's just take a step back. Let's just let the book breathe and let the story like evolve and become what it's supposed to become without trying to force it. So
I like that, being more relaxed about it.
mhm.
I would say that I'm not more relaxed about writing, but I'm more relaxed about marketing. So to kind of answer this whole question, I think I've become a little bit more strategic when it comes to my writing. And I mean, again, this is still evolving. So like this year, when I look at, okay, what have I accomplished? Well, I've written 2 books and a novella. But guess what? One of those books I can't sell because it was part of my Kickstarter. So there was a short story. We had a certain goal on the dollar amount for the Kickstarter, and it was supposed to be a short story of another love, romance that was happening in the background of A Curse of Scales and Feathers. And so it was supposed to be a short story. I called it my not short story because it ended up being 72,000 words long. And I thought I spent all this time writing this 72,000 word not short story for something I can't even sell because there's way too many spoilers for A Curse of Scales and Feathers. And that's not my main story. The main story is A Curse of Scales and Feathers. So I would only be able to maybe sell it to someone who's read A Curse of Scales and Feathers and who may be interested in wanting to get that novel. That's about the only way I'd be able to sell it. I haven't set up anything for that yet. So it just went to my Kickstarter backers. But I was like, I cannot, so strategic, I cannot put time into writing a book that I can't sell because that could have been a book that I could sell this year instead. So moving forward, I know that's not what I'm going to do again. So we're strategic in that. Now, I've been more relaxed when it comes to marketing. Like my first year and a half of doing self-publishing, being a self-published author, and I did YouTube, I did videos. So tons of videos. I know you guys see them, the videos where I said, this is how much money I made because I did this marketing, this marketing, this marketing. Here's how much more in the negative I am. Well, that does get a little bit, demotivating over time that I'm just losing money. And I felt like I was on a hamster wheel. I was doing these promotions all the time. I was getting part of these groups. I was paying for this. I was paying for that. And most of the time I was barely breaking even, but I mean, overall, I was cutting down the money I've spent in my first trilogy. And I think I started off like $4,500 is what I sunk into my first trilogy between, the editors and paying all the marketing stuff I was doing every month. And I got it down to $4,000 at the last time that I was really following along. So I paid off $500 like in 2 years. And I was like, I'm going to be 80 years old before I start breaking even on this thing. So I was demotivated by it. And then knowing that I was going to move into a different publishing model with Kickstarter, and then I'm also using Ream in conjunction with Kickstarter, and then I'm going to sell direct before I ever touch retailer platforms. That completely changed my marketing. It's much more relaxed for most of the time. Of course, when I do Kickstarter, it's not relaxed, but that's not the whole year of me trying to hustle, find a new promotion, find something else to do. So I don't feel like I have to hustle as much. And I feel more relaxed with it. And I'm not one to do social media. I know I should do more social media because that is a free form of soft marketing. I just don't do it the way I should be doing it. And maybe I would sell more books, but I am selling books and I'm not discounting my books. So my novella, I discount. It's the only one I will regularly discount, but my Kickstarter book is on retail platforms. It's never discounted. I probably will in a couple of years, but it's never been discounted. So when someone buys it, I get full price for it. And I think overall I'm in the positive with this series, with the Curse of Scales and Feathers. And if you look at the novella between the 2 books and what I've spent on it, I'm in the positive compared to my trilogy. So it's working for me. It's more relaxed on the marketing side. So
yeah, I've taken a different approach with writing where I'm more regimented. Before I could, set aside a couple of hours and I would write as much as I felt like in there. And then if it was good, great. If not, I could just the next day tear out paragraphs, pages at a time, and just rewrite the entire thing. And now it's, I have 20 minutes, I have 30 minutes here. I'm going to write as much as I can. I might only get like a sentence or 2 or even a paragraph down. And that's all I have to work with at that specific moment. That's all I have budgeted. Moving on to the next thing. And in both the old and the new style, it's the edits where everything gets refined, where it's drafts 1, 2, etc., where I'm like, this is, before it was like, hey, I have way too much here, I need to trim it down. Now it's, hey, I'm missing some key details here, I need to add them back in. And those I don't think there's really one right way. It's what's working for me now, or it's what I'm forced to work with right now, just because of time is finite. So there's that. And then with everything else, it's more in an experimental phase. I tried doing BookBub this summer. I tried a whole bunch of different things, and I'm actually working on a pre-recorded episode all about my experience with BookBub. Spoiler, it didn't go well. And it's fine. I think I actually commented on a couple of mistakes I think I made, so I'm going to maybe try again in conjunction with a promotion. Either way, my writing style has shifted from something that I kind of was whimsical about, is probably the best way of putting it, to now I'm regimented. I will write for 20 minutes, whatever I get on the page, great. Maybe I can come up with something to work on the next time. Like, I only wrote a paragraph, but here's where I want to go next, and here's where I want to go next, and these are the details I want to include. And then with everything else, it's kind of experimental.
How do you prioritize self care when you're feeling overwhelmed by the demands of self publishing? And what activities or practices have you found most beneficial?
So, like at the beginning of the year on my YouTube channel, I always do my goals, and I always put them on writing, authoring, and YouTube. So, and authoring is the whole like, what am I doing for what am I doing is publishing and marketing, and then writing is the writing part. So that's how those are separate. And this year, I decided to add in self care. So I was able to get an acronym out of his ways, the ways of the author: writing, authoring, YouTube, and self care. So I built it in. And so one thing I have been doing since I started on YouTube, and that was 2021, I take a month off at the end of the year. So from December 15th to January 14th, I've been taking that month off. And that's been really, really great to kind of recharge. And I will get like 2 weeks into that, and then I'll be ready to start writing. And which writing for me is not really work. It's all the other stuff that's work. Once I feel that recharge back in there, I start writing, and I get a lot of stuff written in that time period. But I told myself at the beginning of this year, since I want to focus on self-care as a goal, that there were certain things I want to do. And my biggest goal was to take 8 weeks off altogether. And I'm not going to make that goal. I'm going to be 1 week short because I need one more week in fourth quarter. And I just can't see where to put it. Not with me working on my revisions. And I'm going to a conference, probably maybe 2 conferences in October. Plus I want to do my Kickstarter in October. I think I'm crazy, y'all. So I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing to myself. So I'm like, I don't have time in here to take a week off. You got the whole thing with NaNoWriMo going on, but I had thought that I would do writing every day in November. Because I've done that for NaNoWriMo. I've done every day of YouTube writing sprints. And haven't done it this year because I was at conferences all year. The first in April, I was at a conference, and then June, I had my conference. So, and then that was heading into July. And I always take some time off at the beginning of July because the conference is too much. So, but yeah. So yeah, like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do it, but I feel okay. So I think it comes down to small acts. So I think most of us, we like to read. So I always read every night. That's something I always I do that to calm down. And then when I get really, really stressed, sometimes I don't even know I'm doing it. I did this yesterday, actually, because today's Sunday. We're recording on Sunday. Saturday, I was like, oh, I got the whole day Saturday. My husband's leaving tomorrow because my husband left today to go on a business trip. I've got all day Saturday. I can get in here and get a lot of these chapters revised today. I didn't finish one chapter because you know what? I automatically start doing what I do when I feel really stressed, which is I start doing graphic design stuff. I love creating and drawing and creating stuff. And so I made a whole bunch of thumbnails of these different monsters that appear in my world. And that's what I spent yesterday doing. And my son had fun watching me because I was taking like a beak of an eagle here, and I was taking the mane of a lion here, and I was like creating all these different creatures and coloring it and doing the changing. And I was having fun doing it. And at the end of the day, I was like, wow, I didn't finish a single chapter. So, because I was stressed. And so I find when I'm really, really stressed, I just automatically, I can't get into it. I just go straight into doing graphic design usually. So, yeah.
Well, I'm lucky in that the very first thing I do in the morning is I'll work out, I don't know, 6 of the 7 days of the week. So either I run 3 days a week, and then I do other workout stuff in there. So I kind of like a built-in mechanism to work out stress at the start of the day. And then, everything else from there. If I'm worried about something like in the night before, lean in the morning, going for a run will usually help relieve that stress. And as bad of a work day as I'll have, no matter what, at the end of it, I will still just listen to music as I walk my dog. So I have kind of these built-in physical activities every day to try and handle even the worst days. And yes, those aren't foolproof. And for terrible days, for really stressful times, for when bad things happen, I need to just sort of take that internal time to do self-care, whatever that constitutes, whether I'm just shutting myself off from the computer, from everything, maybe sitting there reading, sitting there playing video games, doing something that I just do for myself. And I try to regularly build in the time throughout the week to handle that, in addition to walking my dog and running. But the physical activity, the physical exercise really goes a long way for that.
Exercise is something I need to incorporate into my life.
I was going to say, also as a bonus, when I'm going for my runs, I'm usually thinking about my writing in general. So no matter what I'm stressed about, I force myself to think about what I'm writing next. So it kind of, if I time it right, it can lead into the others, which is why Saturday is my most productive writing day, because I am de-stressed. I have nothing to worry about in theory, and I have ideas to write down.
I make myself do that when I take showers. I'm like, think about your book. What's the next chapter? Think it through. And I'll start wandering. Nope, come back. Or think about the chapter.
For me, self-care usually looks like reading or playing video games or watching YouTube, or just watching old shows that I know that I've watched all the time. Like I have my comfort shows that I'll just watch on repeat. Um, And then just spending time by myself where I don't have any responsibilities and I can just shut everything else out. I really am trying to incorporate like exercise into my daily routine because I know that it's good for me and I should be exercising. But yeah, usually when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I kind of just try to shut myself away and just do things that are fun or watch something fun. Yeah.
So it's funny, we kind of have some overlapping stuff. So like I definitely do the reading like you do, but I don't do the gaming. But I know Ben does gaming, and so yeah, it's funny how we kind of overlap in different areas. All right, so have you guys ever experienced burnout related to writing or self-publishing? And if so, how did you recognize it, and what steps did you take to recover?
Absolutely. There is a lot of stress that we sort of put on ourselves because, in essence, with our books, we are putting ourselves out there with each book. I mean, there's no way around the fact that these books, whether in a fantasy realm, whatever, they are us. They are us putting ourselves out there. And yeah, it absolutely it can be very stressful when we finish putting our books out there and it's great, and then we try to market those books and nothing happens from that. So that is very easy to experience burnout from that standpoint, where it's, oh, I'm just not connecting, and that's stressful because I think I have a good book. I know people who have enjoyed reading it. I'm hearing people through different circles of like, hey, this is really great. I've met friends of friends of friends who were all together at the same party or whatever, and we realized that they realized that I'm a writer that they picked up because such and such friend told them about a book and they really enjoyed it. So it's really fun seeing that, and that's absolutely rewarding. But it's just trying to find those connections on a larger scale, I think, where, like I said, I done the book club thing and that didn't quite work out. So it's very easy to feel frustrated when things like that happen, or when we go to an in-person event and we don't sell as many books as we would have liked, or any number of things, or honestly just feeling burnt out because I'm trying to write, but when I actually sit down and I only have 20 or 30 minutes, I'm not going to get in quality writing time. So the best resolutions to each of those is, with in-person events, just keep trying. There's no easy way around that. I've been to a couple of events where I feel like I wasn't quite a match for the genres that are typically there, or it's more family focused and my books tend to be more adult in their themes, or they're more towards teenagers, I think is probably the better way of saying it. And there's more that event was more focused on young kids, and so my book wouldn't necessarily be a match for that scenario. And so it's just trying different events. So I've gone to AwesomeCon, I've gone to BalticCon, both those were fantastic. So I'm going to keep trying to do more and more in-person events, and that's the way I'll get through that. As far as online, I'm going to just have to keep experimenting and hope that eventually I come up with some kind of way to really sell my book. That's the only way to really work through it. So again, it's just that determination factor. And in terms of writing, well, I recognize that it is stressing me out to not be able to write as much as I want or the quality that I want. And the way I resolve that is usually on the weekends I'll have more free time. So I'll go back and I'll edit the problematic sections, what I think of as problematic sections, or the parts where I didn't really have them well defined, or the parts where I know like, oh, this is talking head syndrome, where you just have two people in a blank room and they're expositing to each other. And so I kind of will spend the time on the weekends to refine those specific scenes. So it's stressful in the moment, but then afterwards I go back and I sort of flush things out with how I want.
So, yes, I have definitely experienced burnout in both writing and self publishing. I think pretty much probably at the end of every NaNoWriMo, I've experienced burnout just from like the fast pace of like, you have to write this certain number of words every day. And also after I published a book. So after all of the excitement of getting the book ready and publishing it, there's like this energy release, and you're just like, now I'm exhausted and I don't want to do anything. I don't want to write right now. I don't want to do anything. And for me, it was like hard to get back into like, well, now I got to write the next book in the series. So I got to keep the story going. So that has been hard for me. And then I recognize my burnout like when I'm staring at my writing or my computer and I just hate everything that I'm writing. That's when I know I need to like take a step back, do something else, refill the well, and then come back to it. So, for as far as steps to recover, one of the things that I really like to do is write poetry, because poetry is how I process like feelings or like deep emotions. So I'll write poetry instead, or I'll watch something that could like inspire me, or I will read a little bit more, because I don't tend to read a lot of like fiction or in the same genre when I'm writing it, because I don't want to get too influenced by the stuff that I'm reading. So when I'm finished with writing, I'll take that time to like dive into like reading books again, or reading stuff in the same genre that I'm writing. And then I think that's pretty much, yeah, that's pretty much how I recover and when I experience burnout.
I would say I think burnout can be hard to recognize when it's happening
Mhm.
for many, and I think it was for me. So I always thought I wouldn't experience burnout because I thought I was pretty good at time managing, and I just, I recognized I was able to like, okay, I can't get that done, so I'm just not going to do it. But there was a point where I think I didn't have a choice. Like if I was going to meet these deadlines that I already stated I was going to do, which one was like the authortube writing conference last year. So not this year, 2024, but 2023. That's where we had like a lot of issues with just stuff happening behind the scenes, and dealing with that and not having the help that we had this past year, which was really great. And then I was doing my first Kickstarter, and all of that really stressed me and got me to a high level that I didn't realize I was at until October. So we're talking like end of June, and it wasn't until October that things started hitting me, and I was saying yes to stuff that I was not following through on. And I just thought, I can't, this is no more, I need to stop. But I didn't realize it was still affecting me until I took my vacation in December. Because usually by the end of my first week of vacation, because I take a vacation for 1 month, December, it starts the middle of December to the middle of January. So after the end of the first week, I'm like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to write again, and I'm like, I tell myself, nope, you're taking another week, no writing, and then you can get back to writing. So I start writing in the third week. And then this year for December, when I took the break, I wanted to do absolutely nothing. I curled up with books, and I read like 20 books in 5 days, and I still didn't want to write. I didn't want to do anything. Didn't want to do anything at all. And now my son was home from, Christmas vacation, and usually I always have things planned. We're going to go do stuff because we're home together and it's my vacation time, and I didn't want to do anything at all. And I realized I really burnt out. I burnt out bad here. So I need to not do this to myself again. And I do think that knowing that I was going to have help for the next authortube writing conference, I was not going to I was hoping I could do a Kickstarter at the same time. But I told myself if I didn't get it done, that's okay. I don't have to have it ready to go by the authortube writing conference, which I didn't have it ready to go. And I don't know if it's because I told myself that I didn't have to have it ready to go. But anyways, it is what it is. And so, but I don't feel as stressed by it. And I'm not in that, when we were in September, I'm hoping I'm not recognizing burnout again right now, but I don't feel like I'm so exhausted. I remember this year, last year, I just felt exhausted all the time. And it was not good for my health either, because I put on like 25 pounds in that time period. So, and I still haven't lost all of it. I've only lost 15. So it's not good for your health. So I don't know. I don't know how to tell someone to recognize their burnout, but you definitely have to take time for yourself, which is, I told myself it was okay. When I didn't want to do anything for that Christmas vacation last year, I was like, that's okay. You don't have to do anything. And I did not start writing until a couple of days before I came back off my vacation. So
I'm really sorry about that. That's recognizing burnout is very, very difficult to do, and having to experience that and having that suck out the joys of life is really a pretty awful burden. But let's see if we can help people out. So if you could give one piece of advice to other self-published authors who are struggling with burnout and finding that balance to prioritize their well-being, what is your best tip or trick?
Hmm. I think my best tip or trick would be to try to implement time for yourself into your weekly schedule, if you can, to just have time set aside for yourself, that you are the priority, that you can do nothing. You can do whatever you want to do. You can read, you can write, you can just lay on the couch, whatever it is, and to make that a part of your routine and a part of your rhythm, because I think a lot of us get so wrapped up in the doing, like we're trying to, market and edit and revise and then promote, that we don't take the time until our body forces us to take the time. So if we can get that just in our rhythm, like in your calendar, like me time, like non-negotiable, this is my time that I'm going to just take care of myself. I think that it would be really helpful just to make yourself a priority instead of everything else being a priority first.
such great advice. It's really hard to do,
Yeah.
to make yourself a priority. I think I think my best tip or trick would be is to allow yourself to be flexible. So I think by telling myself that, well, if I have my Kickstarter going by, June of this year, that's okay. But if I don't, that's okay too. And so I was allowing myself that flexibility. And I heard this piece of advice, and I think I've said it here on the podcast in a previous episode where I heard this, like, I don't know if it's advice, but just like idea that it's not about your goals. It's about how you get there. Because if you've got people who are running a sprint, everybody has the same goal. That's to get to the finish line. But it's not about, getting to the finish line. That's important. It's how you got there. That's more important. So I've been trying to tell myself that, okay, I've got these goals and I will get there. But it's more about taking care of me in the meantime, because if I don't take care of me, I'm never going to reach that goal. So
As for me, Shannon, you already said it, but it's rely on other people. Where you mentioned that you were feeling really burnt out and you needed somebody to help you with the AWC. For me, it's kind of the same sort of thing where I might not even recognize that I am burned out until my wife says something like, hey, you're really snippy. Just tone it back a little bit. What's going on? Or if she'll hear me, yelling profanity through the walls while I'm at work or something along those lines. It can be very difficult for us to recognize when we are experiencing burnout, but it's very easy for somebody else to say, hey, something's not right. Like, just take a few minutes, do something else, walk away, play with our dog, do whatever, throw the ball, do, like I said, do anything else. And that's the best tip I can find is have a friend, have a significant other, have somebody else who is looking out for our health. And I don't want to say rely on them because it makes it sound like a burden, but have them aware of our own health and know when to say, Ben, stop doing whatever you're doing. Go do something else. You're stressed. You need to find some other outlet.
And I think it's a level of trust, trusting that that person is going to be helping you out and that has your best interest at heart.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, what are your goals and aspirations for your self publishing journey moving forward?
I know that I want to get away from the model of thinking of retailers as being the end all, be all, end all, whatever that saying is for, selling books, because I do think that it is a level in between me and readers. And it's hard. It's hard to get feedback. You see reviews and stuff, like on these platforms, you're like, but I don't know what you mean. So being able to connect with your readers more closely, like on Patreon or Ream or Ko-fi or however, I think this is nice, because then you can find out, okay, that's what they meant. Oh, okay. And then you're finding out what's working for them and connecting with them and making those genuine connections with people. Because I think that I don't know how everyone feels about it, but I write stories because I want people to connect to the stories in some way. I want it to be useful for somebody that's going to somebody. I'm sure that a lot of us say we write too because we want to make money. But I think it does come down to, do people connect to something in your work? And so I like that. So I think that my goals and aspirations are that I'm going to get to a point where I am connecting more one-on-one with my readers. I have that more genuine connection, and that retailers will always be there. It's not like I'm not going to publish on retailers. That's not going to be my focus. I think it's hard. Like Ben, what you were talking about, like you do all this stuff and you're still not really getting sales. That was happening for me. I was doing all this stuff and not getting sales, but I know that people liked my work. I mean, I had people do fan art. I had someone do a painting and send it to me. So I know that it was connecting with people. I've had someone with A Curse of Scales and Feathers. She took off the cover, like ripped it off in the video, but she made a cover to put on there that was gorgeous. And then she spray painted the sides and like did a stencil design on the sides. It was so pretty. And I'm like, so I know my work is connecting to people, but in the space of retailer platforms, there's just so much noise that I think it's hard to get to your fans, people that who are gonna love your work. So
Yeah, that's completely fair. And I would love to have somebody tear off one of my covers and do their own on top of it. That would just be astounding. As far as aspirations, I mean, I like thinking in numbers, I like thinking in metrics. So I want to finish off this series. I'm 3 books in. I think the end is at 6. I'm working on number 4. I don't know. I have no idea how long it'll take me. I'd love to say 5 years from now, I will be done with the series and I can move on to something else. I have no idea if I'll be able to meet that goal. But that is something to aspire to for me.
For me, my first goal is to finish, of course, the trilogy and to get that done, because I don't know how many works in progresses I have, but it's quite a bit. And I would like to get those done and get those into the hands of readers. And then for self publishing, I want to take my self publishing journey a little bit more seriously while still being kind of relaxed. I feel like I'm not putting in as much effort as I would like to be. Like, I'm not really giving my all right now to my self-publishing career as a career. So that mainly is that's going to be my main goal, is to give the stories the work and the attention that they need, and also give my publishing platform, my author presence, more attention as well, because I have a lot of good ideas. I have a lot of plans for which books I'm publishing next, which series I'm going to be focusing on. So I just want to make that into a reality.
So, thinking about what, those plans, what you have, are there any new projects or exciting ventures you guys are looking forward to pursuing in the future?
Sadly, I am very boring. Like I said, I am halfway through my series, so that is my entire focus. It would be lovely to work on Ream, or I have ideas for the next series that I would like to work on after this, completely different genres, completely different characters, everything. But right now, I'm focused solely on my Into the Void series, and so I'm not really working on external projects or new and exciting shiny new syndrome.
I'm drowning in shiny new project syndrome. There are so many ideas, but the one that I'm focusing on next is my cozy fantasy anthology series. That's going to be a series of 8 books, non-linear, so you don't have to read them in order. So it's just all going to be stories in the same world that are cozy and have fantasy and romance and mystery. So I'm really excited about that series. And then I also want to do a companion novel for the Seedlings trilogy from Eliora's point of view, which I'm also really excited about as well. And this is like a side project that I'm doing for fun, but another project that I'm excited about is a short story and poetry collection based off of one of my favorite musical artists. So, like, based off of songs that inspired me from them. So, I'm going to write a story or a poem based off of the song and how it made me feel. So, those are some projects I'm excited for.
I love that. One of my favorite short stories I wrote like years and years ago, and well, actually, it was probably novella length because it was 23,000 words. Was based off of 2 songs that I kind of put together, and it's a sci-fi story, soft sci-fi, and it's not romance, although there's romance, but it's a tragic romance, almost like Romeo and Juliet. So I don't think I could have published it right now, being a fantasy romance author, where HEAs or some HEAs. Did I say? I don't know if I said that right, but whatever. HEAs are important for romance. So yeah, having a tragic love story is not going to work, and I couldn't change it to be because it wouldn't fit what the story is. But yeah, I think that's awesome. As far as what I'm doing, so this is going to come out at the end of December. On my Ream, I am putting out chapters for whichever novella I'm working on. So my Ream, and I'm going to be changing the model that's on there a bit, because right now I've kind of just set it up on like for the seasons of dragons. But I think I'm going to change my Ream to be mostly about Nithral. So Nithral is a magical city. It's magically protected in my world, and you can't get to it unless you know someone who has the right stuff to get into there. And then you're tested as you try to enter the city, you're tested. And if you don't have a true heart and true intentions, you're not allowed into the city. And so it's a place that people are going to because they're trying to escape all the wars. And the Nithral, the novellas I'm writing are happening about halfway between the novella that I wrote, The Sunstone and the Hybrid Prince, which is about 1,200 years before the Brides of the Dragon Kingdom series. So this is about 600 years in between those. So all the Summerfey wars are happening. And then there's other little wars happening everywhere because people can't get along. They go to Nithral so it's got like everybody can find there, and they all getting along with each other, or at least they're trying to get along with each other. And so I've written my first novella already. It's already out to all the chapters are there on the platform on Ream. It's free for followers. That's my first one. But by the time this airs, that will come down, and then my next one will be already going, because I already have the next one outlined. Can't start writing it to finish my revisions on this book though. But I have several of the novellas all set up, what I'm going to be doing. And so it's a series. I say there's like small town romances, but small town romances signify cozy, and I can't seem to get away from just really deep subjects. So I thought I was trying to do cozy, but then I wanted one of my characters to have a really deep backstory, and I realized, oh wait, he's the Bane of Petroset. He killed 1,000 airfey with one spell. And I was like, this is not cozy small town romance. Whatever, it is what it is.
That has been the hardest part for me with this cozy series. I'm like, well, no, too dark.
Yeah, I keep going dark. Like, I want my people to be coming back from something. Like I said, I have a passion for writing about broken characters who face adversity, become better versions of themselves. And he never wanted to be this weapon. That's not who he wanted to be, but that's how he was used because of the wars that was happening between the Earth Fae and the Air Fae. So he escaped to Nithral to get away from that, to stop being a weapon. But then there are people there who recognize him. And so now he has to fight for being allowed to stay there, but not really. He's like, okay, fine, I don't belong. And he starts to leave. And so, and I'm like, oh, this is too dark. This is not cozy. So I'm not marketing it as cozy. I probably will stop marketing it as small town because I think small town romance signifies cozy in most people's minds. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I can easily see both of you dipping too far into the dark where you're trying to write cozy, but that's or spicy, I guess, for Shannon's case. You do write a few of those scenes. Anyways, Morgan, this question's for you. What are you most looking forward to in this next chapter of your life, and how do you envision your relationship with writing and publishing evolving?
Let's see. I am most looking forward to putting my head down and actually giving my writing career the time and attention that it needs. I feel in a good place where I'm like, okay, I've cleared away some of like the noise. I'm settled into my job. I know how it works, and I'm kind of finding my balance like in life at the moment. So I'm excited to actually invest a lot of time and attention into building the writing career that I want and getting a greater writing routine and a greater just like more disciplined in my writing and my publishing. And I'm just looking forward to all of the books that I have in my head to get out into the world and have readers and fandoms, and I'm just excited for everything that's to come with my writing career. So yeah.
I love that for you. I love that you're excited to get into this next chapter of your life. And we have come to all the questions that we thought of for this episode. So this is now our time to say goodbye to Morgan, who's leaving the podcast. And as much as I'm happy for you that you are heading into a great chapter of your life, I know I'm going to miss you here. And I mean, the few years I've known you, because I met you in 2021, almost 3 years now that we've known each other. Is when you became my critique partner early or late in the 2021. And it's been great. It's been great getting to know you, working with you here on the podcast, and I know I will miss you. I'm so grateful that we've had this time together, and you're always welcome to come back, even if it's just like a single podcast episode. If you want to talk about something, we'd love to have you back at any time.
Yay! Thank you so much.
Yeah, and as for Morgan, I'm absolutely going to miss you from the get-go in this channel. When I don't even know if it was here or if it was somewhere else, but either way, my point is that your insights have been incredible. And you mentioned just on a offhand topic that you were doing edits. I'm like, this is perfect. You know, Morgan has such like I said, I like the way that you see the world, and so I reached out to you almost immediately or after we finished recording and was like, hey, can you edit my book? I trusted you that much, and it really has meant everything for you editing. Sorry, these 3 books, and the amount that you have put into helping me out with my career has been incredible. And it's, you know, I'm sorry that you're leaving this podcast. Obviously we'll still see each other in the rest of the authortube community.
Yeah.
But you know, SPTT, self-publishing tips and tricks, will have to kind of find its new identity from here, because we are definitely going to be missing out once you are no longer a regular host. So again, thank you for everything you brought to this channel.
Yeah, and I should have said that too. It been said that you affected my career as well, because you've helped me critique my books and get them to be as good as they are.
Mm-hmm.
Not gonna make me cry. But yeah, thank you guys. My time on the pod has been wonderful. Both of you are very important to me, just in my personal life and just in my author career as well. So I want to thank you for just Shannon for starting this podcast and bringing the 3 of us together to do this and learn all of the things we have learned in our careers. And I know it's only going to go up from here. So yeah, I'm just grateful for the time that I had here and for what all of us are going to do next. So yeah, thank you. So this brings us to the end of season 5 and marks the end of my time as a co-host on self-publishing tips and tricks. It has been an incredible journey. Like I said, I am grateful for everything that I've shared with both you, Shannon, and Ben, and as well as all of our listeners. I'll cherish all of the memories and connections that I've made. And as I step away, I am thrilled to introduce you to the amazing Jamie, also known as J.M. Seeley, who will be joining the team next season. Jamie brings a wealth of knowledge in dark and urban fantasy, and I can't wait to see what he brings to the show. Be sure to tune in for season 6 on January 15th, 2025, where we'll get to know Jamie better and discuss 2025 goals. So happy writing, everyone. See you later.
Bye. Thank you so much to our incredible listeners and viewers for joining us on our exploration of everything self-publishing. We hope you found our podcast to be a treasure trove of insights and inspiration. If you've enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform or thanks on our YouTube episodes. Don't forget, you can catch all of our past episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and other major podcast platforms. Keep writing, keep publishing, and we'll see you next time.